Well, we know you have been an activist with the FGM campaign. Can you just continue to explain to us what really is the FGM?
Okay, FGM, which is called female genital mutilation, is also called in Africa circumcision. And this is when the total removal of a woman's genital or partial removal of a woman's genital for no medical reason.
Wow, you just said it's being done for no medical reason. So why do they really practice it?
The reason it's being practiced, it's cultural or traditional. I come from Delta State, Nigeria, and the reason why it's practiced in my community is because the men believe that if a woman is circumcised, that she won't be wayward. And also the women ask to be circumcised because it makes them a whole woman. So a woman will sometimes feel that if she's not circumcised, she's not a complete woman.
Okay, you just said you come from Delta State, and talking about the case in the United Kingdom, do you think the FGM is still being practiced here in England?
Without proof, I can't say it is, but however, people suspect that it's still done in the UK, and the reason why you can't actually catch this, we call them cutters, the women that do this. The reason why they can't catch them is because it's in private, and families, because we live in a culture of silence, and we because of the community relationship, nobody will report somebody who is doing it, because come on, if you believe that it's right, why would you report somebody who is doing it?
Okay, Elsie, since we know that there are also many other African countries in the UK, which African countries are still practicing the act at the moment? Because sometimes when you tell somebody about the FGM in the 21st century, they are like, are you sure it's really still in existence? So which of those African countries?
It's still practiced in Nigeria. It's still practiced in my place, Delta State, and some other parts of the country. And the Somalians practice it. Egyptians do practice it. And I'm not too sure of the Ethiopians. And I think people from Cameroon, the northern part of Cameroon, practice it too.
Okay, that's right. So, looking at your journey as an activist, we came to realize that you are a survivor. You like to call yourself a survivor because of the many risks, health risks that it poses. So, Elsie, why do you describe yourself as a survivor?
The reason I describe myself as a survivor, because when you call yourself a victim, it means that you still, I think something psychological. Because if you say you're a victim, you will feel like a victim. But when I call myself a survivor, it's because I feel I've put it past me and I'm using it to work my advantage now. So that's why I call myself a survivor.
I know you're already a voice and you are always ready to talk your story a little bit in order to give hope to other people and leave a legacy. So if you don't mind, Elsie, can you tell us a little bit what you remember about the process? When did it happen? I
was 12 years old. My parents lived in Kano, that's the northern part of Nigeria. However, my grandmom lived in Delta State. So I went to visit my grandmother at 12, and my grandmother told me she was going to a friend's place and for a party. So we went to the supposed party, and only for me to meet some men sitting there on dirty stool, and I heard a girl crying in the background, and it was there it dawned on me that I was being brought there to be circumcised. And I tried to run out, and they closed the door, preventing me from running out. And so when it was my turn, I was dragged into the room, and people holding my hands, and a man sat on my chest, and then I was circumcised.
So, Elsie, do you really actually hold grudges? Do you blame anybody for doing that act?
Yes, at that time I did blame. I blamed my grandmother, and we until she died, we never had a good relationship. At the beginning, I actually felt it was my fault because I was the only one that was circumcised in my family, and so I what they call self-blame. So I questioned so many things, asked myself if it was because I laughed with boys, or maybe I did something wrong, or my grandmother didn't like me. So many thoughts went. But now I don't blame anybody. I blame, if there's anybody to blame, it's the tradition. And I've gone past it. So.
Wow. Yeah, the conversation is really, really emotional, and thank you for going personal with your life. If I want to ask you, because you don't know an audience who is there watching you, who have been in that situation and have held that situation hostage to their life circumstances, how did you get past it and start living a normal life?
I won't really say I'm living a normal life. It's just I don't care anymore, and to me, it's my power, because I can look a man in the face and tell him that he's not important to me, and that's because I don't think about sex, and I don't care about sex. So it's my own strength, and I don't think it's for women out there. It's not. People will say, "Oh, it's happened." In African culture, we tend to sweep things under the rug, and sorry should erase everything. So I don't come from that school, and I don't think there's one word you could say to a woman that's happened to, like, snap out of it, move on. No, some women actually need psychological help. Some people need counseling, and some people actually need medication, because circumcision is not, it's not like a wound that, if something happened to you, you just move on. So, and pain, you can't measure pain. So
wow.
What I feel could be different from what the other person feels.
Yeah.
So everybody is a different stage of their journey or their pain, So I really can't tell someone to just snap out of it and move on.
Yeah, Elsie, you have been voice on this matter, and I know you come across a whole lot of many people out there. So what are some of the significant cases you have come about? I mean, the ones you can remember.
The one thing I know they suffer most is shame, and that's because you've been violated, and you don't feel like a woman. And I have been around some women, and one of the things but besides the shame, they find it difficult going to see the GP, especially for pap smear. And the reason is because when they go to see the nurses, some nurses are not trained on FGM. And so when they look at the woman, the first thing the nurse asks you is like, what happened to you down there? And that's embarrassing to some of these women. And that's why a lot of women in London, me inclusive, we don't go for pap smear. And so because of this, a lot of women suffer cervical cancer and all, which could have been detected at the early stage. I have, it's funny, when I tell people that I don't do pap smear, but I have actually paid. I've held seminars in Nigeria, workshop, teaching women, and even paying for women to have pap smear. but I don't do it because I actually find it embarrassing when I meet a nurse. In America, it was easier in America because if I go for pap smear in one clinic, I change clinic. Don't go there anymore because I don't want the nurse looking at me saying this woman is half a woman, so yeah. I think it's a psychological effect that it's greater than the physical sometimes. Yeah.
So as a survivor and an activist, I know you must have done a lot of research, and with your own experience, what are some of the health risks this practice possesses?
Besides death, because in some cases, some women actually bleed to death. People suffer from infertility. They suffer from infection, and that's because most of this, like in my case, the place I had on my circumcision was a dirty place, and I don't even remember if the woman even cleaned the razor blade she used, and she actually did not have gloves. So think of it: if the person before me had AIDS, I could have easily caught AIDS there.
If the FGM practice poses all these health risks, why do you really think, because through research you must have learned a lot, why do you think some people still practice the act?
The reason people still do it is because Africa, we're bound to our tradition. Sometimes I tell people that they're slaves to the culture. Africa is one place where you are forced to follow your tradition. You don't have a choice in that matter. It's your tradition, you must follow it. And some people do it out of ignorance. Their great-grandmother was circumcised, their grandmother was circumcised, their mother was circumcised, they were circumcised. So, they don't even understand, when you tell them that, look, this woman will not enjoy sex. They don't understand that, because it's like women are not supposed to enjoy sex anyway in Africa. We're supposed, so that's the reason why it's still practiced. It's because it's the tradition and people have to follow the tradition. And
now that it's related to tradition per se, when do you really think this practice can end? I know the End FGM sensitization campaign is looking at 2030, and with the COVID breakdown, the UN brought in some figures that said a whole lot of women, like 2,000 women, are on the list, 2 million or so, that might be circumcised. So when do you really think?
I disagree with UN. I don't believe that it will ever end. I believe it will decrease, but ending, I don't think it will, because it's our tradition. And you're an African person, you know how it is. Africa, it's not possible, So, but the only way is through, maybe we will decrease it, and maybe million years from now, not our generation, it will end, but the only way is just through education. That's the only way I see. But laws, they can minimize it through the laws, but people will still do it. I know it's against the law in UK. However, people still take their children outside the country, and it's hard for an African child to report their parents. It's not, again, our culture. And the child, some kids are scared of being stigmatized, because people will always look at that child. That's the child that, because of that child, the parents were sent to prison. No child will want her mother. As much as they hate the mom, no African child brought up by an African parent, with that culture, who wants their parents to go to prison because of them. So a lot of children will not. However, it's nurses are being trained now in London, in UK, to when kids go to the hospital, they know the signs, and they are able to check and detect and report. And also schools are being educated now, teachers are being educated. So when a child leaves the country and does not come in for after 6 months, they know to talk to that child and ask questions. So that's improving. Some parents are scared, so that's there's been some improvements there, but people will still do it.
What advice can you give to the women out there who might be considering to cut their daughters? Or better still, what can you tell the young girls out there who might be victims or survivors tomorrow?
What I will tell the mothers is don't do it.
Yes.
It's not, there's no medical reason. I mean, there's no benefit at all. There's no reason whatsoever why they should be cutting them. They also, they could lose their children during the circumcision, and it could cause a lot of health problem and psychological problem, and also marriage. It could break marriage. I've met men who are married to women that are circumcised, and these men complain that it's like sleeping with a log of wood, because the woman shows no emotions whatsoever. And now it's so funny that this thing is done to prevent women from going wayward, but it's now making men wayward, because if you're sleeping with a log of wood, you know men and their ego. So if a man feels if he's sleeping with a log of wood, he doesn't feel complete, so he has to go out to see if he can turn a woman on. Yeah. So mothers mothers shouldn't do that, because they're not only hurting their children now, but they're also destroying their future. Yeah. And for the young girls, if you suspect that you're going to be circumcised, call the police, talk to your teacher in school, talk to your you could talk to your friend's mom. And an easy way to know that you're going to be you're going to be a victim is if an auntie suddenly appear that you never heard of before, and you know that she's called a cutter, so you know that you're at risk of being circumcised. Or if you overhear your mom talking on the phone, and maybe she's like, oh, when we get home, when we get to Nigeria, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Then she shouldn't go. Report. I know it's hard to do that, but report, because she's at risk. And if it's happened in your family before, if her sister has been circumcised, maybe her elder sister 2 years ago went to Nigeria and got circumcised, so she knows that she's going to be next.